Jerry,
Yes, Jason.
is the microphone on?
Yes, Jason.
Shall we begin?
Yes, Jason.
Computer Blue, the fourth track on the Purple Rain album, is the lyrical focus on this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I'm welcoming back to the show Jerry Bonner. Hi, Jerry.
Hey, Jason. It's been a bit, but I'm happy to be back.
Yeah. Computer Blue. This is the jam, man. This is a great song from the Purple Rain album, and I think it's one of those that gets overlooked a bit. Would you agree?
Most definitely. I always default to what Chris Rock said about Purple Rain. It's like comparing it to Michael Jackson's Thriller in a sense that there's no Baby Be Mine on Purple Rain. Every song is a jam for sure, and it holds its place in history that way. But certainly in that respect to saying that every song is great, and it's a song that an album that you can just play back to front without skipping anything always.
Yeah, for sure. And this song is interesting from the aspect of its song length and where it fits in the album and on the movie. So the song is credited to not just Prince, but also members of the Revolution, Lisa Coleman, Wendy Melvoin, and Matt Fink, but also his father. John L. gets some writing credit on this song, so it really feels like a true collaborative event in the same vein as like Let's Go Crazy or Baby I'm a Star. So in the respect of the movie at this point, to give context to the song and its place in the film, it comes on shortly after Prince and his dad have a confrontation about the kid's mother. And apparently, the two of them had a fight again. Another one of those battles that the parents in the film undergo several times throughout the movie. And then the kid and his father have a discussion about relationships. And his dad asks him if he's going to if he plans on marrying this girl that he likes. And I think he says something like, never get married, or I'm paraphrasing, but essentially he warns his son never to marry.
Yeah, don't ever get married.
Yeah, don't ever get married. And that is kind of like leading it right into this performance of this song.
Yeah, right. The opening strings kind of happen still as that scene is playing out.
Yeah.
As the scene is ending, and the kid's father obviously is pretty, whatever you want to call it, strung out, kind of bug-eyed, and says never get married, and kind of looks him dead in the eyes, and then the strains kind of kick on, that beginning of that little, the guitar kind of wailing kind of starts, and then it kicks onto the stage. So, yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. Yep. And then all we see at this point is a shirtless and sweaty Prince on stage performing the song. And at this point in the song, most of the song is not performed with Apollonia in the audience, even though you have to assume that he and she as well as his parents are kind of the muse and kind of the inspiration for the songs, lyrics, and the performance that he has for the film. And then of course, just like on the album, the song bleeds into Darling Nikki when she arrives with Morris. But we're not talking about Darling Nikki. We're here to talk about Computer Blue. And the version that is played in the film and it's on the soundtrack is about 4 minutes long, which is about 10 minutes shorter than the longest version that exists of this song, which is fucking nuts.
Yeah.
It's crazy because this song is already very, improvisational in kind of tone and sound. It's primarily instrumental, at least the version that we get on the album. And to think that there's another version out there that's 10 minutes longer, just boggles the mind. And the way I understand it, I haven't heard the full 14-minute version, because what we ended up getting on the Purple Rain Deluxe was even a shorter version of that.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. I mean, I know of the 14-minute version too, and I've never heard it either. And hearing the hallway speech version, it always kind of blew my mind as well. I mean, the first time hearing it, it was just I always liked Computer Blue, but then hearing this kind of expanded version of it for the first time, I remember it distinctly because I was actually in the shower
Mm-hmm.
I had it, playing on like a Bluetooth speaker in the shower, and I was like, holy mackerel. I mean, this, it just takes the song to a whole nother level. And that was something, obviously Prince at that time he could always do it, but at that time specifically, it seemed like he was just kind of channeling something else where he could make, something out of nothing almost immediately. And it's just so, it's so impressive just, how you for so long, just one version of a song, and then you hear something similar, but then again, completely different as he evolves the song or kind of as it plays out. So yeah, the hallway speech version did really strike me, as just something amazing when I first heard it.
Yeah, same here for sure. So we're going to do something a little different with this podcast episode. Like normally I just stick to the official released versions that were on albums or, like on the B-sides of singles. But I feel like for Computer Blue, yeah, we could have done that, but there's only one verse and a very short chorus, and the rest of the song is instrumental. And knowing that there is now an officially released version of this song that was on the Purple Rain Deluxe Edition released in 2017, and as you alluded to, it's kind of been dubbed the hallway speech version, I really feel like that's the version that I want to cover for this episode because of how interesting a lot of those aspects of the song's lyrics are. The version that we didn't originally get. It really fleshes the song out more from a thematic standpoint. I mean, obviously more lyrics, able to tell a bigger story within the song. And a lot of the themes that he's talking about in terms of like, the song is titled Computer Blue, but you really get a sense for who is the computer, what is the computer that he's referring to in this song a bit more by listening and by deciphering a lot of those additional lyrics. I mean, at least for me personally. What about yourself?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, and the thing to me, it's, I guess this really kind of deals more with his father's influence on the song as well. Listening to the extended version, it really it scratches the surface on themes that he explores, obviously, in Around the World in a Day, with songs like Temptation and The Ladder. I guess this is kind of the beginning of that, that, and we'll get into it, I guess, as we discuss the lyrics, especially the expanded lyrics, a bit more, but yeah, it's definitely, I think the version we need to discuss that really kind of addresses, the expanding or the greater themes of what this song is about, for sure.
Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to bring up, I mean, for a lot of people that listen to this podcast, this is very well documented and understood information, but I just wanted to say it anyway, just in case anybody who's listening wasn't sure or didn't know why this version of the song was truncated so drastically. So there was the version that was originally meant to be on the album, which I don't know if that was exactly the hallway speech version or if they even had a different version. We're going to assume that it was somewhat like the hallway speech version, the version that we got on the deluxe album, for lack of more information, I guess, on my part. But it was reduced down to a much shorter 4-minute version just to include Take Me With You on the album. It was decided that there needed to be this ballad with Apollonia that kind of soundtracked an important section of the movie when they're driving around out to the country to quote unquote Lake Minnetonka. And so the format of a vinyl album and a cassette didn't allow for both. You couldn't have this anywhere between 8 to 14 minutes of Computer Blue plus Take Me With You, so they did what they had to do. And I mean, I always loved this version of Computer Blue. The 4-minute version was perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that once you hear the extended version, that's like the definitive version then from anybody who listens to it.
Yeah, point. I mean, once you hear it, it's like Pandora's box is opened. You can't really go back. Yeah. It's out and it's okay. It's like, well, and you get. I mean, that was kind of the thought that now hearing that. I mean, it's why didn't I hear this version back in 1984? So that was where was this in 1984? Even on the radio. I mean, the radio sometimes you would hear the DJs on the radio or the radio stations would get these extended versions, and that would be kind of the only way you would hear them.
Yeah. Better late than never, though.
Better late than never.
Better late than never, and I'm happy to have it. So the song opens up very famously with that spoken intro between Lisa Coleman and Wendy Melvoin, two members of the Revolution, the only two women in the band. The lyrics are, Wendy, yes, Lisa, is the water warm enough? Yes, Lisa. Shall we begin? Yes, Lisa. So I was a kid when I heard this, and all I heard was sultry female voices asking vaguely erotic questions. I don't know if it was just because I was just entering into puberty and it was just that time for me, but me and my friends, we took this in a very dirty direction, I guess. And I can't be the only one, right? I can't be the only one.
No. I mean, it obviously, and knowing again more, what Prince is about, and even the imagery in the When Doves Cry video. I mean, he had a thing for baths and giving women baths and the whole ritual of that. And my educated guess would be it's obviously referring to that, with the whole bathing thing. And yes, it does have. They wouldn't be using the tone and inflection in their voices if it wasn't meant to be. I'm sure, they were directed by Prince to make it, sound, sexy. And so, yeah, it definitely, as a boy of that age as well, I was, 13, upon, first time hearing this. And of course, that's where your mind goes.
One's mind can go a lot of places because it is so vague. I mean, it's so unexplained in the context of what we end up getting. And it offers very little besides just two women talking to each other, and there's discussions about water, and so let's say hypothetically the water is bath water, or some sort of shower or bathing water. If it is that also implies then nudity, because most people don't shower or take baths with clothes on.
Yeah, most certainly.
If it's not, then you can think of it maybe from a standpoint. I mean, I've read a lot. I've tried to do a lot of reading about this because it's always intrigued me. And so back in the day, my friends and I, we had visions of it being some sort of, lesbian bath ritual, which, both women are lesbians, but I didn't know that in 1984.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, did they even know that in 1984? Were they even a couple then? I mean, that's
they were. They had been dating around that time and slightly before that, so they knew.
Yeah,
but I didn't.
No, right. I mean, that's the thing of it, and that of course at that time it really wasn't anywhere near as accepted as it is now. To be out, even females. So. I don't think that would have went over too well, back in 1984. So
and Prince never really, if he knew, he never asked the women to play that up. It was always they kind of played in the band. I feel like they were asked to be more heterosexual acting. For example, in this particular performance of this song in the movie,
right.
Wendy pantomimes providing oral sex to the kid on stage. So there's obviously some direction given to continue just being that kind of vaguely sexual but a little indifferent persona that the women had, and that was always very intriguing to me, where they kind of acted like they were above it and maybe better than you in some ways. I kind of liked it a little bit at the time.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
I've also read that this can also be looked at as a potential baptism, so it goes back to the whole religion and sex intertwined themes that Prince was very famous for doing. I don't know if you've ever heard that theory.
I have not, but I mean, it definitely, makes sense in terms of, I mean, Prince always had that, the raging conflict between, his sexuality and his religion. So, I mean, if it was, meant to be more of a taken as a baptism, I could see that for sure.
Yeah. And I've also read, I didn't know what to call it when I was younger, but the whole dominatrix style of sexual fantasy fulfillment. you can kind of get a bit of that from, like, if you're thinking maybe Prince is involved in this and it's a potential threesome, menage a trois, he may not be saying anything, but he is the submissive. And once again, this is not a theme that was unexplored by Prince. Anybody watches the music video for Automatic sees a very similar type of encounter played out there at the end of the video. Just swap Jill Jones for Wendy Melvoin, and you've got a very similar type of visual aesthetic.
This kind of, again, extrapolates that. You can definitely go from that to this and say, okay, he's just playing upon similar themes he was in Automatic, where he's bowing to a woman's, a computerized or a robotic woman's wishes, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely take it from that. Yes, no doubt.
Anything more on this opening section that you wanted to talk about? I feel like we went through a few different potential hypotheticals.
Sure. Yeah. No. I mean, I like you. I mean, again, being a younger male growing up, I mean, I immediately went to the first thing we spoke about, but the just being a kind of a sexy, sultry thing related around maybe giving each other baths and that kind of thing. Whether Prince was involved or not, was kind of a moot point. At least it was just, this is it's titillating, right? It grabs you. You don't hear too many pop songs or however you want to opening in this respect. So it's definitely an interesting opening and or hook.
Yeah, very, very Penthouse Forum like, where
So there's a reference I haven't heard in a while. Yeah,
Penthouse Forum like, where you're really forced to use.
You'll never believe what happened to me.
I have these two women that asked me to take my clothes off.
Give me a bath, and they insisted upon being robots or something. I don't quite understand.
Very odd.
Yeah.
But it is a bit of an odd opening, but it's completely memorable. And I think I read an interview where it was either Lisa or Wendy, where people would say, like, "Oh, how do I know you guys? Hey, we're Wendy and Lisa, musicians, Wendy and Lisa. So how would I know you?" And all they have to do is just say, "Wendy, and Lisa."
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Lisa. And they're like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly who you are now." So
sure, yeah.
For better or for worse, and I think they've embraced it. I mean, it's to be tied to this album in this era, there's nothing to be ashamed of at all. So they've totally embraced it, and even if they're not entirely sure what Prince was intending when he had them say these lines, they totally embraced it and enjoyed like the experience of being part of this kind of odd moment in pop culture, for sure.
No doubt.
Okay, so that is how the song opens. And then we go into some musical aspects of the song to get the song going. It kind of starts chugging along a bit more. That portion of the song is spoken over just kind of like a robotic synth beat and drum machine. And then we get a little more of the music added in, the do-do-do-do-do-do-do, with more of the drum beats behind it. And then it kind of explodes. Prince screams, and then the song explodes into what we typically know Computer Blue for. It's a really high energy, what I would call like a synth rock song in many ways. But it's one of the more like rock and roll songs on the album, besides maybe Let's Go Crazy. From a technical standpoint and how it's performed. Purple Rain obviously is a rock song as well, but this song and Let's Go Crazy, I think, are the two most upbeat rock songs. Baby I'm a Star is upbeat as well, so it's just, I don't know. This is more like avant-garde rock, though, than some of those other songs on the album. This almost feels like it could be, on some sort of avant-garde pop rock album from the 80s, and really people look at this album as kind of an avant-garde album, even though it was massive and popular. Some of the ways that the band performs this song and how it goes in so many different directions, and we'll talk about the father song interpolation into it as well. It just it's very complex, and it really does a good job of interspersing different musical ideas into one composition, I think, and that makes it so cool.
Definitely. I mean, it's to me, and especially again on the extended version of it. I just love Prince's guitar work on this song. If you ever want to play something for someone that doubts Prince was a guitar god, you can play this song, and again, especially the extended version where he really kind of lets it rip. I hate to use the word, like, I wouldn't say progressive, but it definitely does a lot of things that really kind of marry different kind of philosophies and musical styles. Again, right, for a huge, massive, record and movie, you just wonder, how it all worked, but it does. And it's still obviously classic. So, and here we are talking about it, so many years later. So,
yeah, the song is great. And so then the first verse is, "Where is my love life? Where can it be? There must be something wrong with the machinery. Where is my love life? Tell me, where has it gone? Somebody please, please tell me what the hell is wrong." Okay, so in the first verse, he's asking questions. I just did the beautiful ones prior. This was the song that came before Computer Blue on the track listing for Purple Rain. And in that song, he asks a woman a lot of questions. And here he starts right off on Computer Blue asking more questions. But he's asking questions of himself, I think. And it's not like external questions expecting answers. These are like hypothetical questions where he's just kind of pondering the state of his love life, basically, and how the angst he's feeling over maybe a relationship that isn't going exactly how he had envisioned in his mind, which, of course, mimics the film, because at this point in the film, he's having relationship woes with Apollonia. She seems to be gravitating toward Morris Day, his rival, and it's really kind of confusing to him, and he's having a hard time dealing with that. So he's asking about his love life. Where is it? Where's it going? What's happening here? And to use the terminology, there must be something wrong with the machinery. Obviously, just it matches the theme of the song Computer Blue, and we haven't really talked about the use of technology in this song to kind of replace human emotions or humanity or flesh and bone. So when you hear this first verse, Jerry, what kind of things jump out at you?
Well, obviously, I mean, it directly relates to the film. I mean, you touched on that. He's wondering why she's choosing to hang out with Morris and let Morris shepherd or be her be her whatever you want to call it, Svengali, or not him. What is it that's wrong? What is he doing wrong? And how can, I mean, what he's plaintively kind of asking, where has it gone? I don't know. And, and again, knowing it's hard not to draw, from the film when you talk about this song, especially because it obviously kind of directly relates to things. I don't know, maybe you shouldn't have, whacked her across the face when she comes to see you late at night.
Yeah, you think?
Maybe that's where it went, buddy. I don't know. It went right out the window.
You bring up a good point.
It went right out the same window she came in when she was bringing you, coming to see you and bringing you a nice guitar, and then you whack her across the face. Yeah, it's he screwed up and wants to know where's my love, where's my life, and she's a big part of it. Although in the film it does seem kind of quick and kind of truncated, but that they're already kind of at this level. So yeah, he did something wrong. He's wondering where she has gone, and I can't really I would like to maybe extrapolate more. I'm sure there's people who have other theories, and But it's hard not to obviously, tie it to the events in the film. And it makes me wonder, I guess, what came first? I mean, was it the script of the film or was it the song? And which played off which, like in a chicken and egg, philosophical question. Did Computer Blue come first and then the script of Purple Rain, or did the script of Purple Rain come first and then, then Computer Blue? So
this was recorded in August of '83. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure about the timing of when he got a final script for the movie and when these songs were being written. I kind of feel like they might have been around simultaneously, but I don't know that for a fact.
Right. And the funny thing that I always go back to my youth and a little bit of kind of emo young teenage Jer. I remember, I was totally had a crush on this girl in my 8th grade class, and she had wanted nothing to do with me in a sense. And I remember writing the line in my notebook, somebody please tell me what the hell is wrong in relation to that. Why doesn't this girl like me? And just doing this kind of like little design around that lyric in my what I don't know, I don't even remember. I think it was my English notebook. Being very emo, if you want to, before that was even a thing, I guess.
Yeah, emo before there was emo.
Yeah.
He sounds very confused in this verse. Like, I mean, as I mentioned, I don't think he's really asking questions that he expects somebody to answer for him.
Sure, they're definitely rhetorical, but
they're looking inward, and he doesn't say like I messed up. But you can kind of maybe imply like he's trying to take some ownership. But not yet. I mean,
no, it takes him a while to get to that.
Yeah, it takes him a while to get there, and this verse doesn't really give you that glimpse of that he's really kind of owning up to his part in the failure or the
possible failure,
the possible failure, the murky waters that he's navigating in with this relationship. He's just kind of pondering and really just in the space where he started to try to figure it out, really, is what I'm getting from this. He's asking questions because he's hoping that by asking the questions, maybe he's going to, be presented with some answers that he gleans from it, self-reflection, I guess. Okay, so after that first verse, the chorus is, "Till I find the righteous one, Computer Blue." He repeats it again, "Till I find the righteous one, Computer Blue." So that's the chorus. "Till I find the righteous one," I just get from that, the righteous one is the woman or whoever. I mean, I guess you could take this a different direction and look at it from, again, the religious aspect of it, but I personally never looked at it. There's a lot of like religious songs in this album that you could take both ways. "Let's Go Crazy," "I Would Die for You," for example, are two famous ones. "Purple Rain" even a little bit, but I never really got that from this song. I'm sure maybe others have, but to call somebody righteous, I always took it more from the slang standpoint, like, a righteous chick or a righteous babe. You would see that or hear that in the 80s as something that was a descriptive term that was meant to be very complimentary.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I always took it. Somebody who's worth your time. Till I find, a woman who's worth my time and effort, I'll be sad. The computer will be sad.
Yep.
And that's the way I took it. And again, righteous can be obviously taken to the religious context of, the moral righteousness or philosophical righteousness in a sense. But yeah, at its face value, until I find a girl that's worth my time, I'm going to be sad.
Yeah, and the fact that he also calls himself a computer in this verse, or in the chorus here, it really kind of goes back to the whole technology and human emotions and trying to figure out what is he saying here. So I've got some theories, but I wanted to hear what not really theories, but just some thoughts on the whole topic of technology in this song and why Prince calls himself a computer, because he's saying he's going to be blue, computer blue, and that's an interesting take. I think it's a really interesting take. So what kind of thoughts do you have on the chorus and how he refers to himself as a computer in this song.
And again, from my understanding of Prince as his career went on too, he always seemed to like the religion, like his kind of struggle between his faith and sexuality. Seemed to struggle between using technology and not using technology. It seems like at certain points he was fascinated with what technology could do, and maybe was one of the first people who really used that, and innovated with that in certain ways, using the synth sounds and the synth drum sounds. But then there seemed to be times when he would completely turn away from that and then go, completely analog rather than digital. And I think computers, obviously, it's fascinating because it's, very binary, right? It's on or it's off. And I think that's maybe what he's referring to here. It's his own duality, and computers, again, it's very dual. It's just, ones and zeros, right? It's on or it's off. Yep. And that's, what I would take away from it. And, knowing, Prince, and he was a smart guy, he was referring to that, the duality of the computer. It just is what it is. And, so those two things are my basic takeaways. Again, and later in life, it seemed like there were times when, he loved the internet and loved what it could do. And he was, distributing music exclusively through the internet and his own like little clubs and websites. And then there are times when, he was like later on, it's like, oh, the internet's over. I mean, it's all done and I'm not going to use streaming services. And then he turns around and does that. And
very love-hate, hot, cold.
Very love-hate, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
He loved it at times, hated it at others, and used it to its full capacity at times and then completely ignored it at others. So yeah, you're right. There was always that, and even going back all the way to 1983, 84, when computers in homes were still kind of a novelty, and a lot of people didn't have them, that had never used them, and to use computer, I don't know, like in 83, 84, a computer was like, for me, and I know that there were plenty of people that had home computers, but I didn't. And so for me, it was more like this.
I had just gotten a Commodore 64 the year before. Like I got it for that Christmas of like 82 or 83. So yeah, it was new to, well, I mean, my father was a computer programmer, so we always kind of had that stuff around.
Sure. And my parents were not.
Yeah.
And so it was a very, like the thought of using a computer was very intimidating to me. I remember taking like a computer programming class when I, like during the summer one year, like 82 or 83. And it was just super intimidating. It was just like the basic, type in these series of keys and
basic
commands, and then you could watch a thing move across the screen, like a little blip or whatever. And it didn't make any sense. Like, how is it that I'm typing this stuff and then I hit enter and then this thing happens? I just could not make the connection at that time. I was just too young and computers were too foreign to me. But I just found it like pretty progressive of him to even be talking about computers in the context of a pop song in 83, 84 without him, being like you Thomas Dolby, blinded me with science type.
Sure, yeah.
Nerdy musician, that's really just looked at as, somebody who does a bunch of programming and spits out a pop song. He wasn't that way, or at least he didn't convey himself that way to us as listeners of his music. He seemed like, like this rock star, basically, and to have that integration with the geekier, nerdier side of technology, I thought was interesting, and it really kind of spoke a lot about maybe to his actual personality, versus what was always being portrayed by him to the public. But one other thing I wanted to bring up is that with computers, it kind of implies, to refer to yourself as a computer kind of implies that you're using like some sort of operating system that you're not in control of. Like a computer can't control its functions. It needs outside or external forces in order to work properly. A computer is only as good as the person who's using it. It's only as useful as the person that's programming it. And I get the sense that he's trying to say, like, he can be reprogrammed. Like, he can be used for good or bad or for a number of different things if he has the right external stimulus or the right external forces help driving him. Like, and it kind of goes back to this whole feeling of helplessness. Like, I'm just a computer. I'm smart and I have a lot of capabilities, but I need that other person to kind of interact with me in order to get the most out of me.
Sure. I mean, the computer only takes what the input that the programmer or the user, gives to it. And, you can take it as the input that he's gotten in regard to relationships, i.e. his parents, hasn't been the greatest. So he's just, mimicking what he has seen all his life. And that obviously shows through again in the movie. His father's obviously a bit abusive and, he's kind of following in those steps. Now, does he have to? Is the programming, irrefutable? Can he, reverse the programming or can he change the programming that he's received all his life in terms of watching his parents' interaction? He calls them in the movie, obviously, at one point, a freak show. So, can he circumvent that and become something more?
Yep. Can this poor lonely computer be reprogrammed?
Right. The poor lonely computer. Yes.
And so, I mean, all right. So let's move on. The next verse actually is, so that's it for the lyrics that we get on the official release version. That's it.
Yep.
Then it's instrumental and it's the breakdown with the father's song interpolation. And I'll just bring it up briefly before we move on to the other lyrics. So the reason we believe John L. Nelson, Prince's father, gets co-writing credit is because there's a thought that the section of the song that do 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 do, that song was a piano composition that John L. wrote that Prince turned into a guitar solo. And ultimately, Prince turned that into a standalone song called Father's Song. It was used in portions to soundtrack the film during certain scenes, when he used like introspective scenes of the film and also scenes involving the father in the movie. But it was integrated into Computer Blue as kind of like a bridge of sorts. That I'm assuming that's what you understand as well. I mean, I know it's not been confirmed, but that's the widely held belief.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, he takes, his father's composition, where the father kind of almost challenges him in a sense. It's like, yeah, they're all mine and they're all different. I don't need to write them down like you do, that kind of thing. Obviously, that turns out to be kind of a lie when at the end of the movie when he comes across all the sheet music. Mm-hmm. Yeah, most certainly. I mean, and hearing, again, the extended version of Father's Song, this really kind of blew me away, as this extended version of Computer Blue does. Just, how kind of synthy and spacey it kind of gets at the end after the kind of the initial, piano part. And again, it's one of those that just kind of like, man, I wish I would have heard this in 1984. I don't know if my brain could have handled it, but still, it's so cool to hear where he took these songs. And where he was going with them. And you almost feel a little bit cheated. But yes, definitely Father's Song is incorporated for a very specific, thematic reason.
So the second verse that we don't end up getting, unless you're listening to the hallway speech version, is, "Where's my baby? Where can she be? Somebody please, please tell me what is wrong with me. Where is my baby? Tell me, where has she gone? Somebody please, please tell me what the hell is wrong." So that is the same, very similar style of lyrical content that the first verse had. The verse that we end up getting, it's a lot of the same stuff. He's asking questions. What's going on? Where's his girl? What's wrong with me? He once again looking internally. What's wrong with me that's causing these problems within the relationship? What's my role in it? What's wrong with me? Why isn't that she's not staying with me, or why are we fighting? So I don't know. I don't really get, there's nothing much more I don't think we need to say with the second verse unless you have anything additional. Kind of the same stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty much, just reiterating, what's in the first, verse. Just plaintively kind of asking, what's wrong and where the problems are. Mm-hmm. And how can I address them, I guess, but yeah, still pretty much the same.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so then there's a lot of, instrumentals. There's like an ad lib where Prince says the computer's on the verge of a breakdown, and this is before some more guitar solos, and And as I mentioned, this song was a true collaboration between most of the members of the Revolution and Prince, where I think like various members came up with different ideas for like a synth pattern or, guitar break or something, and Prince grabbed them, put them into the song, made him, perform them in a way that he saw fit for how the song would flow. And then we get another spoken interlude between Wendy and Lisa. So we kick the song off with
I guess let me just interject real quick, Jason. In the musical part, and I always find it interesting how those things kind of hit you. Again, when I first heard this extended version, there is a musical kind of like synth part, break part, where it's used in the movie actually briefly, where Prince comes on the stage and Brown Mark and the doctor and are kind of practicing, and he wonders where Wendy and Lisa are, and when he comes onto the stage, that's what they're playing. They're playing that little part in the movie, like it's actually in this song, and it's like when you hear it, it's like, oh, that's that little part in the song where he comes on the stage and Wendy and Lisa haven't shown up for practice and he gets angry. And it's like, but you just hear those little musical snippets, and it's like, oh, and why would you just take that little part and put it in the movie? But there's a lot of that, when you hear
not give us that version,
right? These extended versions of these songs, and you hear little parts like, oh, it's in the movie, and that's it's in that little part in the movie, and so it's that to me was interesting as well in some of that you said expanded music that he used maybe from his bandmates, and there's just that little hit of it in the middle of this, extended version. So I found that intriguing.
Well, yeah, the movie was meant to kind of infer that the Revolution was a very creative and talented band, and Prince wasn't really utilizing them in the way that they felt was appropriate. Like, he was too much of a control freak and didn't want outside input. I mean, that was kind of one of the, I wouldn't say even the B theme, like a C or D theme, or C or D plot in the film was his strained relationship with his bandmates because of his inability to kind of let go of control. And that scene that you mentioned where they're playing that implies to me that, they're working on kind of cool aspects of the songs and trying to make them better and more interesting. And at the end of the day, I know the version that we end up hearing on stage in the movie doesn't even include that.
Yeah, it does nothing of that, yeah.
Like the cool stuff that Wendy and Lisa and Brown Mark and Fink and Bobby Z are all doing, independent of Prince, just get ignored because Prince didn't come up with them. Or the kid didn't come up with them.
The kid, yes.
This isn't a biography.
Yeah.
It's hard sometimes.
It's semi-autobiographical, Jason. Come on.
Yeah, because we all know that Wendy and Lisa didn't write Purple Rain. Basically, like how it's implied.
How it's portrayed in the movie. Yeah. Right.
Exactly. The next spoken interlude between Wendy and Lisa that we get on the hallway speech version is you hear them say, "Poor lonely computer, it's time someone programmed you. It's time you learned love and lust. They both have 4 letters, but they are entirely different words. Poor lonely computer. Poor, poor lonely computer. Do you really know what love is?" And I personally really enjoy that because it gives a little more clarity, I guess, to the opening section about is the water warm enough? I mean, yeah, they're talking about completely different things. I mean, they're not related directly by saying, okay, now I know what the water is because of this section, but it brings the 2 women back to like this robotic spoken section, and you kind of get a feel like it's the same 2 women at the very beginning of the song that are talking to Prince or the kid, and it's just more of like chastising him, or I don't know, it's hard to describe what I got.
I mean, I take it as like almost like condescending or kind of looking down on him. It's like, oh, you poor little thing.
Yeah.
How can you not figure out the difference between love and lust, and why are you struggling with this? And we're gonna have to teach you, I guess. Obviously.
Exactly. Yeah. I get that a lot, and that kind of even speaks a little bit more to the whole pseudo dominatrix vibe.
Sure. Right.
Like instead of teaching him about matters of carnality, they're going to teach him something else, or maybe something a little deeper and a little more meaningful. I kind of look at this section when they're saying this So they're saying poor lonely computer, which, as we already kind of alluded to, Prince is the computer in this song. The kid is the computer. And I get almost a little bit like Prince is chastising his younger self for choosing lust over love, maybe more often than he should have, or maybe, with some reflection, he's like, boy, I didn't always choose the right person to be with because I was choosing, lust over love, or lustful intentions, or casual sex, or whatever you want to call it, over what potentially could have been true love, and as a potential personality flaw in his younger self. Maybe at this time we know that he's starting to kind of approach the point of his career where he starts looking back at his younger self and thinking, maybe I need to change my ways. I mean, it doesn't happen until the next album with Temptation, but maybe it started as early as the recording of this album. I don't know.
Yeah, you would have to think that. I mean, again, hearing this, immediately, especially, it's time that, you learn the difference between love and lust, immediately drew me to, the Around the World in a Day stuff, the Ladder and Temptation. And this is the beginning of that, the little kernel or the little seed that became, a much bigger, full-formed idea in stuff he was doing, in Around the World in a Day. And you really seem to have a real crisis of conscience and or faith on that album, with these decisions, trying to choose, between what real love and lust, and obviously has the whole conversation with God and all we, later on in those albums. It's not the way it works and all that. And this is very similar to that, except it's, it's a computer, or these robotic females telling him the same things that kind of God said to him on Temptation.
Yeah, I almost kind of wonder, and I just thought of this as you're mentioning the kind of the connections between Temptation and Computer Blue and Wendy and Lisa in this song specifically. I wonder if he's kind of giving them almost sounding like above him in a figurative sense, but also almost in a literal sense.
The way I heard it, that would immediately jump to the God voice in Temptation. It's just kind of maybe a toned down version. You're talking more about something more concrete as a computer rather than a deity, telling you, you're wrong and you're going to die because you can't figure this out.
Yeah. But it is. It could be interpreted that way, where you could think of them as...
Yeah, that's the way I took it.
These godlike creatures, these beautiful godlike creatures that are going to teach Prince or the kid what love really is. And that section of the song I really enjoy. I dig that because I really like how it ties back to the beginning and the use of the same style of voice in the spoken word section, but it also adds a lot more meat behind the lyrics and more meaning behind what the song is conveying with that. And before, in the verses, he's talking about just how confused he is about, why is this relationship failing, and why doesn't she like me? What's wrong with me? Oh, what's wrong with you maybe is because you don't even know what love is. You don't know how to love or be loved. You're looking at these situations, these interactions with women in a lustful manner, and not in a way that you can be your true self or even show what these women that you have the capacity to love. And that's where, we kind of get the feeling that these are the core reasons why your relationships are failing, dude. So let's correct that. Let's reprogram you and figure this out.
Yep, no doubt.
There's some more really fun, everybody wave your hands in the air during another keyboard break, but we're going to skip all that because that's just, to help kind of guide the song along and give some things for people to say around over the...
Yeah, it's just this is the fun part before we get serious again.
The hallway speech section is what's next, and for the sake of time, I'm going to read them all, but we're not going to talk about every single line. So I'm just going to read the lines for us and the listeners, and then we're just going to kind of talk about maybe what are some things that we see throughout the whole thing, not just line by line. Okay, so Prince now does his own spoken word section, and he speaks it kind of quietly. You have to really be paying attention because there's some music going on in the background.
Yeah, it's hard. It actually is kind of hard to hear over the music. Yeah.
So it's nice that we have some lyrics to read. He didn't like living home alone. The house where he lived had many hallways. It was a long walk to his bedroom, because to him each hallway represented an emotion, every one vastly different from the next. One day, while she was with him, he decided to name each one of them. She was at his side, one hand on his thigh. No, wait. She was sort of half a step behind him. Yeah. The grip on his thigh intensified as they walked slowly through the corridor. He named the hallway Lust, and as they passed through the next one, he named it Fear. The grip she now loosened, so he walked faster, her hands now trembling. She let drop to her side as he wrote the word Insecurity. He looked in her eyes and smiled a demon smile, and quickly walked on to the next. Corridor after corridor he named almost, all when suddenly he stopped. He picked up the word Hate. She was gone. So he picked up the last one. Pain. Whew, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
There is. Well, I'm gonna let you begin on this one, Jerry.
Oh, so good.
Let me know what your kind of thoughts are on the overarching idea of what he's trying to tell us here with this section.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously, again, it's very intriguing and very interesting, to hear something like this in a song. It's almost like a spoken word kind of thing, and almost like a little story interlude or a short story contained within the poetry or the verse of a song, because this obviously doesn't have any of the same conventions as a normal song. It's just a little, like I said, little short story kind of dropped in the middle of this song. I mean, he wants, to me, it's taking it at its face value. He's, trying to, I guess, take this woman, on the journey of his life with him and showing her various aspects of that. And some are good and some obviously aren't. It seems though we're seeing a lot of the worst traits here. I mean, if you want to attribute, lust as being, bad as one of the 7 deadly sins, it seems like that kind of thing almost. He's taking her through kind of a menagerie of sin here, lust, fear, hate, insecurity, pain, not showing, I guess, the prettiest sides of his own, psyche or inner workings, but then, obviously she leaves by the time, at the end when things get really difficult. Yeah. And so there's a lot of that. I mean, it's very, it almost seems like a dream, right? You would have a dream like this. And maybe he did. Maybe he was, I don't know that for a fact, but it seems like, a dream journal entry in a certain way. You could say as well. You're walking through these corridors and somebody's with you, and at certain points maybe they're not, and one you feel different emotions in each corridor, and none of them are pleasant. But when you need somebody to be by your side, they're gone. And I think that's kind of what he's saying here, is that, when I needed you the most, when things got painful or, hurtful, you were gone.
Okay, so we know Computer Blue basically is a song about his inability to love, his inability to maintain a relationship because of some personal flaws he has, that he's trying to, self-reflect on that. What the hell is wrong with me? Where's my love life? Well, for me, this hallway speech section really kind of helps us and, the performer understand what the hell is wrong with him. So he doesn't like living alone. So he obviously likes the idea of being in a relationship and sharing himself with somebody else. And he's living in, so this house is his self. This is him. He is the house. Mm-hmm. And as he's trying to show this woman who he is, but unfortunately, all he's showing her, like you said, is all this negativity and these things that kind of represent the unsavory or the unflattering portions of a person's personality.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
so, yeah, there's a place for lust, fear, insecurity, hate, and pain. But when that's all you can show somebody else, and you're giving them a tour of your quote unquote house, meaning a tour of who you are, and all you can show them is lust, fear, insecurity, hate, and pain, you can't expect anything other than a failed relationship or for her to just leave, because that's what he says. She was gone. After he picked up the word hate, she was gone.
She was gone, yeah.
She was
Yeah,
gone.
I mean, you want to show, I think if you truly love somebody, you show them your best and your worst. And, you don't get any of the best in that, obviously. His good sides. You get all the, I don't know, though. I mean, you can take it to as maybe he's opening up and showing her the terrible sides and saying, okay, I love you and I trust you. I'm going to show you these terrible things, and hopefully you'll stick around, and hopefully you'll still love me. And obviously, in the context of the song, she doesn't. And maybe that's what he's taking it as, is, you left me when I needed you the most, and or when I was at my worst. If you don't love me at my worst, then you don't deserve me at my best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it that kind of thing he's saying here?
Maybe, yeah. But if he is, he needs to
he needs to get to the best part.
He needs to lead in with that and not do all this other stuff. 'Cause, I mean, he says in the line, he looked in her eyes and smiled a demon smile.
Yeah, I think that's very
telling. Walked to the next corridor and stopped at hate. So that's some scary shit. So if you're, this is already after you've shown her that you're insecure, which she's also very insecure in the film. The kid is super insecure because the minute Apollonia starts talking with Morris, he gets all jealous and insecure about that. And
yeah, almost even before that, because remember the one part, she's like, he gets, right after they have their love scene, and he gets off the motorcycle. He's like, she's like, I can't see it till later. He's like, why? I have something to do. It's like, well, who? He's immediately questioning her motives or where she's going and what she's doing. I always found that, even as a kid, kind of odd, but. Yeah, how almost possessive he was immediately.
Oh, yeah, super insecure. So he shows all of these emotions in the film. The kid does. I mean, the lust part, of course, because he sees Apollonia out in the audience at the beginning of the film, and he's like, well, okay, I need to talk to her, because, goddamn, look at her. Yeah. And then you got fear.
It's her.
Fear of, losing his spot in the lineup at First Ave, I guess. Fear of showing or allowing his bandmates to become an integral part of the creative process. Fear of them usurping his position as the leader of the band. I don't know. Insecurity. We just talked about that. Insecurity towards, again, his bandmates. Insecure about his place. Insecure about his own talents, potentially, but also insecure in the relationship aspects of allowing Apollonia to even interact with Morris. And then hate, hate is the part, like you had mentioned, where he smacks her. I mean, that comes from hate, and also the learned hate that he had growing up in the house that he did with his volatile home life situation. There's a lot of hate in there as well. And then the pain he feels from the fact that he unfortunately has all of these personality flaws that are coming to the front, and people aren't seeing often enough the good parts of the kid. And I think that if this hallway speech really explains to me a lot of what this song is truly about, and helps explain a lot about the kid, who the kid is in the film.
Yeah, and then you could definitely see why, knowing that or taking that away from that, knowing why he wanted this extended version in the film and on the soundtrack. Because
it's a shame. Didn't make it.
It's a missed opportunity, but now here we are talking about it. So
yeah, they needed that cute little love song, "Take Me With You," which is a great song.
No, it's a great pop love song.
It needed to be there. So I get it. I think a lot of this, as much as we love it and as much as we geek out over it, if this song on the album and No Take Me With You, and you just have like this 8-9 minute version with all of this stuff, and this hallway speech version, it might have been too much for a pop audience. It really might have.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, so then after that, there's more music and more ad-libbing on Prince's part. He talks about on the verge of a breakdown. He's talking about himself, of course. What is life without love? It's hell, computer blue. And there's another section of lyrics. And a lot of these lyrics towards the end of the song, they feel like just kind of, I don't know, I say ad-libs, but they probably weren't. None of them were probably true ad-libs from the stance where he just made them up on the spot. But he says, "Father, Father, the sun is gone. The dawn, where is the dawn? And, I mean, not to get too deep into the religious aspects of this, because I personally don't get it as much as other people do. I would have to like talk to somebody who's doing a really in-depth job of turning this album into a religious album, which I've toyed with writing about that, because you can almost take every single song on this album and apply some sort of religious context to it. And with lines like "Father, Father, the sun is gone, the dawn," that just adds more to it, even though I don't really know exactly what he's talking about here.
Well, I think it was either right at the end of this phase or at the beginning of kind of the Around the World in a Day, when he used to, use the "May you live to see the dawn" was kind of his little, whatever you want to call it, his little catchphrase, or in the liner notes and things like that.
It was on this album that he used it. And
it was the first, that wasn't 100%.
May you live to see the dawn.
May you live to see the dawn, yeah. I mean, and it bleeds over, into the stuff that he was talking about in, Temptation and The Ladder on the next album, dealing with his father, dealing with those emotions. Is it the Heavenly Father he's talking to? Is it his own father? Or does he see them as kind of both in a way? So, yeah, I mean, he's in a dark place, right? The sun's gone. I'm waiting for the dawn. I need the dawn to kind of give me the rebirth or make me feel better. I'm in a dark place. It's scary. I need the dawn to get me through, or show me that there's hope. Yeah. And that obviously has the very religious, significance, which you can, pile on top of that if you want. But that's the way I take it. I'm scared. It's dark. I need, the dawn, the redemption. I need, the sun, or, make me feel better and kind of know that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. It's like he's kind of turning, like after this self-reflection and after this dreamlike scenario with the hallway speech. Sure. He's looking maybe for some guidance, for some divine guidance, and he's asking God questions. Shall I go to church on Sundays? Shall I stay home and pray? Shall I try to make her happy? Shall I try to make her stay? And I think it's just like you said, it's just going back to he's looking for help, looking for assistance, looking towards God and
right. Is he still talking to the Father there?
Yeah.
Is that who he's asking? These questions. I'm lost in the dark and I need guidance.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then the outro, we get more of Wendy and Lisa doing their bit with the spoken word section, and they close it out with "Narrow-minded computer. It's time someone programmed you. It's time you learned women are not butterflies. They're computers too. Just like you, computer blue. Chauvinistic computer, it's time someone programmed you. You fall in love too fast and hate too soon, and take for granted the feelings mutual. We're computers too, just like you, computer blue." That section just really kind of ties it all up in a nice little bow. You take those three sections, or really, if you take the middle section where they're talking about poor lonely computer, take the hallway speech, and you take this spoken outro, you've got basically like the makings of, an explanation. It's all laid out there for you what this song is trying to say, and none of that was in the version we got.
No doubt.
So
yeah.
it
you
takes
feel cheated.
Yeah, I feel cheated a little bit, because this song is super deep.
Yeah.
It's super deep, and it really, really explains a lot about the kid, because once again, this is a song for a soundtrack. Can't look into it too much. I mean, yeah, the man wrote it, and a lot of stuff has, some real truths behind it, but you also have to just also take with a grain of salt. Like, he's writing the song as maybe the character of the kid, who we know is a seriously flawed individual. And this is saying that he's narrow-minded, and he's not looking at women the way he looks at himself. He's looking at that, like he says, we're not butterflies. We're complex. We women have just as much emotional baggage and potential for growth and failures as you, computer. We're no different. You have to start treating us like we're all on the same playing field, and you may be able to understand us better if you look at us not from the standpoint of lust, or even just something like a butterfly, where it's like this beautiful, fluttery thing that needs to be protected, or it can float away with the slightest breeze because it's so light and airy. No, we're like this complex computer that can be programmed, from birth to be a certain way. And if you want it to reprogram it, you got to put in the work. You have to learn about us. You have to learn what our operating system is, how we communicate, and what makes us tick. And then you might be able to figure out what's wrong with you and why these relationships are failing. And they even call them chauvinist,
Yeah, that one kind of that one's okay. Yeah, hearing that, like, chauvinistic computer, it's okay. That's an interesting choice of words, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, there's been, kind of like in our 21st century view of old media, film and music, sometimes we look at things from a different viewpoint. And there are sections of Purple Rain, the film, that are chauvinistic. I mean, the way he treats Apollonia, and, well, the way they treat Apollonia 6, I almost said Vanity 6, the way they treat Apollonia 6,
Don't make that mistake.
wear these camisoles and panties and strut around on stage and basically sell sex, and just the way the women are treated in general in this movie.
Well, you mean sex shooter doesn't have any layered contextual meaning? Is that what you're trying to tell me, Jason?
I'm saying
I don't believe it.
I'm saying that there, from a viewpoint of today, yes, there are certainly some chauvinistic and sexist elements.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I'm sorry, not to interrupt, but yeah, the scene that immediately jumps to mind and strikes me, and I found it funny as a kid, but now from 21st century viewpoint, is the scene where the woman confronts Morris on the street, and Jerome picks her up and throws her in the dumpster.
Uh-huh.
Just out of hand, just like, okay, Jerome, boom, throws her in the dumpster, and they kind of laugh about it, and it's like, you look at it now, it's like, oh man, that would never ever fly today. It just, I could hear the think pieces from BuzzFeed and a million whatever different sites, talking about how horrible this is. I mean, I can draw a simple conclusion or a simple extrapolation in my own life is obviously Prince. We talked about it a little bit. Hits Apollonia at the one point. Pretty much for almost no reason, and just kind of wails on her. And I wrote a screenplay, and it has something similar. I mean, a man strikes a woman, and it's kind of in a heated moment, but much more intense than even that. Not just I'm going to work with Morris, and then boom, it's very, and
very reactionary.
Yeah, and but this was what I wrote was a little more. It had a lot more meaning, and he almost hits her like accidentally in a sense, but the reaction to it is like, oh my God, he's immediately the worst person on the face of the earth, and he can't do it's like, but you're missing the whole point. It's like, yeah, I know it's not great. It's supposed to be not great, but he's not this horrible person who deserves to die just because he struck a woman once, and that's again, that's people. It was not widely accepted, but people didn't react that way to that scene in 1984.
Yeah, he still had a chance for redemption.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he does.
Wasn't canceled.
And you can, it still can be done. It's he made a terrible mistake, but he can still rise above it. He can still, be a better person, a better man. And there you go.
You fall in love too fast and hate too soon. That's a really good description of kind of like his character. Really, I mean,
yeah.
He hates real quick. I mean, he is super quick to really kind of show disdain or hate for somebody over the slightest offenses. So that's explains a little bit of his personality right there with that line, and the chauvinistic computer and taking feelings for granted. Anything else you want to talk about with that spoken outro with Wendy and Lisa?
No, I think you pretty much summed it up fairly well. I mean, you can't help as a fan, to number one appreciate just the virtuosity of this entire song in terms of guitar and music and lyrics and just kind of almost storytelling in a sense. And that, I guess, to wrap that up, when I first heard it, the complete version, it almost to me seems like this could be almost like an animated movie in and of itself, like something like The Wall. I would have loved to have seen something like that, a short kind of film just based around this song, with these lyrics. And that was, again, a thought that I took away from it.
Some trippy visuals behind it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Using the animation, on top of, kind of this person's life kind of falling apart. Or I just, that was the thought that I had. It would have been super cool to maybe that's somewhere buried in the vault still. Who knows?
Who knows? I'm just happy that we have this version of the song out there finally, and in an officially cleaned up version. I'm sure people had heard this in previous years. I said it before in prior podcasts. I was never a bootleg guy. Didn't really.
Yeah, me neither.
I didn't have that in. If you know somebody like a drug dealer, you can get it easily. You might hit them up more frequently and get that latest fix. But sure. I never did. So
I never really sought that stuff out.
Yeah, I never visited places like swap meets or whatever that had bootleg versions of Prince music. So it just wasn't something I did or sought out. So I didn't hear this version until 2017. So
yeah, me too. In the shower, even.
In the shower. Oh, technology, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Great stuff.
Get the Bluetooth speaker in the shower, and you're ready to roll.
Okay, Jerry. Well, I think we did a pretty darn good job of covering this, but I have to assume that there are other interpretations of this song out there that I would love to hear. Now, as far as yourself, how can people get a hold of you if they want to say hi to you and just check out what you're doing?
Mostly on Twitter. I'm pretty active at jbonner71. You can talk to me there, hit me up there if you have any thoughts or comments on our interpretations of Computer Blue. I look forward to hearing from any and all of you.
Excellent. I do as well, and you can get a hold of me a number of ways. I'm on Twitter as PresserWine75. I use the same name for Instagram and also have a Facebook page. So find me there. Comment directly on the podcast website if you'd like. I have people do that, and I always respond back. And also, I'm just going to throw this out there. I've never done this before for this podcast, but if you listen to the Presser Wine Prince Lyrics podcast on Apple Podcasts, feel free, and if you enjoy it, the show, obviously, feel free to put a review on there and maybe, a review and a star liking, ideally 5 is best case scenario.
One hopes.
But, obviously be honest about your feelings towards the show, and I hope that you would rate and enjoy it. So that is all for now. We've covered Computer Blue for quite a while for a song that officially only has one verse and one chorus. We went above and beyond to give you the hallway speech version.
We did yeoman's work here, Jason.
Yep. We did our due diligence and gave you guys the version that I think is what everyone deserves to hear and to discuss. So,
if people haven't heard it, they'll seek it out now.
Yeah, please do if you haven't.
I would think most huge fans would know it, but if you haven't heard this extended version, this is the version to hear.
100% agree. Yeah. 100% agree. Okay, well, that is it then. Thanks, Jerry, for joining me again.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
And this has been the Presser Wine Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger, and until next time, goodbye.